Well, hey, everybody, this is Robert, and welcome to today's show. Do you have an idea for a book and don't know where to start? Don't know how to get it out there? Have you ever thought about self-publishing? A lot of people are nowadays. And I think today we have the right person to talk to about this particular topic. So joining me today to discuss self-publishing is Julie Broad. Julie is the founder of Book Launchers and author of a new book called Self-Publish and Succeed. It's a very good book. I encourage everybody to check it out, and I will link to it later when I publish the podcast. And it's subtitled The No Boring Books Way to Write a Nonfiction Book That Sells. Hi, Julie. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Okay, well, why don't you go ahead and give the audience a little background about yourself? Why would they come to you to learn anything about self-publishing?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, especially if you know that I'm a real estate investor and I did an MBA in real estate and finance, you're definitely going to wonder why you'd come to me about self-publishing and writing a book. But it's largely, I got into self-publishing by lack of choice, really. At the time, I was in conversations. I had a real estate training and education company, and I was in conversations with a couple of publishers because my platform had started to grow. I was doing a lot of speaking. I had a YouTube channel. You know, when I'm talking platform, that's what I mean. And I was approached by a couple of publishers at this event, and I ended up getting into a pretty serious conversation with Wiley, one of the major publishing houses. And I told them about my book idea, and they were like, no, that's been done before, but we'd like to work with you. And so they gave me a book idea, and we went back and forth on this book proposal for 3 months. And it was not an idea they'd given me. So I was pretty sure I was getting a book deal. But they ended up saying that I didn't have a strong enough platform to sell books. And that was after 3 months of back and forth. So I was pretty devastated because first they told me my idea stunk, and now they were telling me that I couldn't sell books. So my husband just kept saying, though, like, your first idea was good. Like, don't listen to them, and you should self-publish. And I kind of kept thinking, well, self-publishing, like, somebody needs to give me the honor of being their published author. I kind of felt like I had to be chosen. But I ended up really meeting some people that really would have been helped if they'd had my book, this book idea that I had about real estate investing. And so I ended up going, well, you know what? Like, I can't help them if I don't write it. So I wrote the book that I really felt needed to be written, and I self-published it. But thanks to the kicking I had taken, I felt like I went into it with a bit of a vengeance. I was like, fine, if I'm self-publishing, I'm going to do it better than if Wiley did give me a book deal. And so I studied everything there was about self-publishing and writing a book and all that stuff. And I ended up taking this book, the book idea they said wouldn't sell by the author that they said couldn't sell books. And I took it to #1 on Amazon ahead of Dan Brown, ahead of Game of Thrones. I sold thousands and thousands of copies in a couple of weeks. And I was in top 100 of print books on Amazon in Canada for 45 days. So it was pretty good. It felt pretty good to prove them wrong. But that also really got me into publishing. And also, I realized after everything that happened, Wiley turning me down was the greatest gift that I ever could have been given. I made so much more money. I had full control over my book. I wrote the book that I believed needed to be written, and it did because people bought it. And that was kind of my introduction to this world.
All right, well, that's really good. That's very encouraging for others too. I think the book is very timely. So I'm going to ask you, why this book at this time?
The new book, The Self-Publish and Succeed, yes, is I think really important right now because a lot of people self-publishing has become mainstream. And as a result, a lot of people are getting into self-publishing, but there's a really big gap between what self-published authors do and what traditional published authors do. And that gap is before you even get a book deal, you have a marketing plan, a very clear audience, and a clear idea of what your book is about. Most self-published authors write their book and then try to figure out who the market is and where they're going to sell it. And that gap creates this big problem. Even for authors who do invest in creating a quality book, they still don't have a lot of the marketing fundamentals that need to be in that book from the beginning. And that's really what my book addresses, is writing a book that people want to read that is set up to sell from the very first moment you start writing.
Okay, like I said in the intro, that your subtitle is The No Boring Books Way, basically. What kind of advice do you have for a prospective author to give that book a hook? How to keep that book not being boring?
Yeah, there's a few things that are involved. So the first thing is exactly what you just said, the hook, is making sure that you have a reader focused hook. So what I mean, what a lot of people do is they get told, "Oh, your story is incredible. You should write a book." And they think that means that they need to write their story. and and sure, your story is going to be in there, but everything that you write is for your reader. So the book might be about you, but it's for your reader. So your hook has to have, what is the outcome when your reader is done reading that book? What's the outcome for them? Even if it's a memoir, there's still an outcome. And if you say it's inspiration, that's not enough, right? That's not going to keep somebody reading, because there's millions of books out there that could be inspirational right now. So what are you inspiring them to do? What's going to change in their life after they read it? So that's that first thing. And it's harder to come up with than you think. But once you do, that makes your book something people not only think, "Oh, that's a cool book, maybe I'll read it someday." It takes it to, "Oh, I need to read that book right now." And then the other piece of this is yourself. What's going to make your book interesting is you. And what we find is people who try to protect themselves when they write boring. They write with big words that make them sound important and intellectual. They will also tell the surface of the story, but they don't actually tell the real stuff that's underneath that story. And that's the stuff that people relate to. That's the thing that makes them want to hear the end and read the next story and get to know you. And they really have to want to spend time with you, because a book's going to take most people 5, 6, 7, 8 hours to read. That's a lot of time to spend with somebody that's boring.
Right. And that kind of like leads into my next question, because you actually have a whole chapter about things not to do, which for me, that was perhaps one of the most important chapters. Julie, can you go ahead and spell out some of these key points of things a prospective author need to avoid?
Yeah, I mean, I could go. There's lots and lots of things. One of the
Yeah.
main things is, I mean, I'm kind of curious actually. Like, what's one of them that stands out to you that you made that makes you think it was one of the most important things you read?
Oh, I mean, all of them. I mean, because I've been thinking about doing a book myself, and it's like, boom, each one of these things. Just for me, mostly is the fear of failure. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's a good one. And I mean, for a lot of people, so there's a couple kind of technical things that are not to do. So I'll touch on those in a second. But one of the things is the egos. Like, I call them your monsters, right? Your monsters in your closet. And fear of failure, fear of judgment, imposter syndrome, and fear of success are
Mhm.
kind of the big, powerful, ugly monsters that we all have. In fact, a lot of people think successful people don't have these monsters. But in many cases, the successful people have even bigger monsters, because now they're up against their past success, and their past success is a huge monster. They compare themselves to, everything is it going to be as good as this like monstrous thing I've done? And so we all have them, and you kind of have to know that. And one of the ones for me and a lot of our clients is imposter syndrome. And if you feel this imposter syndrome creeping up, it goes back to your reader. What is your reader going to get from this book, and what's going to happen in their life if you don't write this book? And if you connect to that, it can really help. And again, it also goes back to writing the book for the reader and not for you. Because if you're writing it for you, then you're going to have that fear of failure because you might fail. But if you're writing it for the reader, then you're setting the reader up for success. And your concern is whether the reader is going to be successful, not whether you're going to be successful. So the reader is a game changer from a marketing perspective and a mental survival perspective.
Exactly.
On the technical side, I can give one other thing, because it's one of the things that breaks my heart, is people hire editors at the wrong time, in the wrong order. So as a technical, like what not to do, is people hire copy editors when they really need to be hiring developmental editors. There's different kinds of editors for books, and a lot of people don't realize this. And so this wasn't even in that chapter, but this is something that I see as breaking my heart all the time. And I've now, it's my mission to explain this to everyone. There's 3 different kinds of editing. There's developmental or content edit, there's copy edit, and then there's proofread. And almost all books need a developmental editor, which is actually what makes a book good. They go in and they read and they check the structure. They look at the credibility of the author. One of our editors describes it as a shark hunting through water, looking for flaws or breaks in your story. And that's really, really important. And a lot of people just hire an editor, and what they're getting is copy editing, which is sentence structure, word choice, grammar, punctuation.
Right.
And that doesn't make a book great. That makes a book grammatically correct. And there is a very distinct difference. And copy editors are really expensive. So that's why it's heartbreaking, because when you hire a professional copy editor and spend a couple $1,000s on it,
Right.
but your book isn't better afterwards because it needed the developmental work first. That's why it's so sad.
But the spelling's good.
Yeah, but it's spelled. I mean, you've got good grammar, so congratulations.
Yeah. I'm sure a lot of people are not even aware of those different types of editors. So that's very interesting. How about? I know another thing that I personally struggle with is how to be efficient about this. How to save time, because this is a burden, for lack of a better.
Project.
Yeah. So, any ideas? What would you recommend to prospective authors?
There's a couple things. So one is to create a plan. And so what we do and what I recommend in my book is to create that writing plan up front. So you design your hook. So figure out that through line, because what a lot of people do is they have so much material, they don't actually know what should go in their book. So the hook really determines what needs to go in the book, because you're really building a house that's going to create an outcome for somebody. And so, you need these walls, you need these pieces in order to create that outcome. It's very clear. So you need that hook first. And then from there, you got to figure, okay, what has to go in here in order to create that outcome? If somebody's writing a memoir, one of the big mistakes they make is they write it chronologically. Very rarely is a book interesting chronologically, but that's what when they sit down, they think of it that way. But if you think of it as an outcome, and you kind of know as a story arc where you want to take that reader, then you go back and you build the story that needs to be told instead of telling it chronologically. So that's first thing, is you build your writing plan. And then there's tactics and strategies. I mean, for some people, if you're super busy, just hire a writer, because then you can talk. If you're really good at talking but not as strong at writing, or you question yourself a lot, talking out your book with somebody can be a really efficient way to get your book done once you have this plan. But if you're writing it yourself, I like to kind of do a couple of things. So one is writing sprints. And writing sprints you basically take 20 minutes and you spend 5 minutes figuring out what story or topic or steps you're going to cover today. And then you set your timer for 12 minutes. And for those 12 minutes, all you do is write. And you just imagine that Pac-Man is coming for you. And the minute you stop writing, Pac-Man's there, and Pac-Man's going to chew up your words. So just keep typing. And what this does is, it's kind of like if anybody's trained for a marathon or running races, they mix long runs with short speed runs or sprints or hill training. That's the same thing. So first of all, you're likely to write 500, 600 words in 12 minutes, which is really great. You can really hammer out a book fast if you're writing at that pace. But second of all, it also teaches you to write more efficiently. A lot of people will waste a lot of time when they're typing, just like staring out and thinking and like pondering which word they need to write. And what you really need to do is just write. And so the sprints get words down, but they also train you for those longer sessions to be more efficient.
Something else I wanted to take a look at, and I really never put a lot of thought into this, are some of these minor details, but maybe they're not so minor. The copyright page, the dedication page, the forward. Am I wrong, or other people wrong in considering these things minor and not a major part of the book? Or
a lot of people don't think of them in terms of marketing, and I think about everything in terms of how it's going to help you or not help you sell your book. So when it comes to the dedication, a lot of people think, oh, this is my page. Like, this is the page where it's all about me and my family and who I need to dedicate the book to. The dedication is something almost every reader reads. Mm-hmm. And so that's your opportunity to introduce your readers to a little bit of your personality, give them a taste of this person they're going to spend the next 5-8 hours with. So my recommendation is to put something there that is for the reader, more so than for yourself. But you can still dedicate it to your family, but do it in a way that presents it for the reader. And then as for the other pieces, forewords, if you don't have somebody that's super famous writing the foreword, and they just need to be famous to your reader, but it needs to be somebody that the majority of people who are your ideal reader are going to be familiar with, I wouldn't even worry about having a foreword for the most part. It doesn't sell your book. And so here's the two things about it is it sells the book if the person is very, very well known and writes a decent forward. But what happens if you get like your dream celebrity to write your forward and then they write a terrible forward? Now what are you going to do? Now you have to put it in the book, but it's terrible, right? Like, so,
Wow.
and I've seen this happen a few times. So it's kind of one of those things where I'm like, I wouldn't worry too much about it unless you know you're going to get something great and it's going to sell your book.
Wow. Never really thought about that either. I know when I write articles for the websites, a key part is the title. That's what attracts people most of the time. And I guess the cover would be similar when we're dealing with books. How important is the cover, and what should a prospective author be looking at?
I mean, your title is the most important thing, and your cover is the second most important thing. And the cover is really, I mean, I always tell people it's a 60-40 split. And so 60% of what you got to be worried about is when the cover is this big. Like, it's like a little thumbnail, and that's really what matters, is how it stands out in its competitive category. And it's a standout but fit in. So it's kind of an art, right? You want to look like you belong in that genre. So you build trust with your potential reader, at the same time as you want to have something that draws the eye in. So it is really one part science and one part art in creating that. And a couple things to avoid for most people is avoiding putting yourself on the cover. And this is a play that a lot of the vanity publishers will like show you a cover with yourself on it because they're really excited to get your money and they want you to feel important. But really, again, it goes back to that reader and what cover is going to appeal to your reader. And if your reader has no idea who you are, how are you selling that book? With the exception of if you're an athlete or you're like, there's an action shot of you that is relevant to the reader experience for that book, then that can make sense. But for the most part, you want your reader to be able to visualize the outcome that you want them to achieve from that. And they're not usually going to achieve, visualize that unless it's like a six-pack ab shot of you because you're teaching them how to, get six-pack abs.
Yeah, it makes sense. Other than Amazon, I mean, most people think of Amazon when you think about self-publishing. There are other routes, though, right?
Yeah, for sure. And Amazon's only one of them. And I always encourage people to, use more than just Amazon because Amazon has a lot of power already. And, if we just keep giving them exclusivity, we just keep giving them more power. So I like to personally spread it around, even though you can make more money by being exclusive with Amazon. But, there's lots of bookstores out there that are, really great. And a lot of them will do hard work on behalf of their local authors if you build a relationship and, work with them. So we generally set folks up so that they're selling on Amazon because that's still the big place to be, but that we're also available in libraries and bookstores and through a lot of the e-distribution services. So there's lots of subscription services, especially in Europe, but even in Canada and the United States, there's not just Kindle. There's Kobo and there's Apple Books. There's other ways to read the books. So we set it up for what we call wide distribution, which is reaching all of these places.
How realistic should a person be concerning making money on self-publishing a book?
Yeah, it depends on your goals and your audience. So that's the one thing is if you're coming into this with no audience at all. So by audience, I mean, have a podcast, a YouTube channel, a newsletter list. You don't have regular speaking engagements. You don't have that in place right now. Then it's very difficult for you to launch with a big launch. And so you're really building what we call a momentum launch. And so you're going to be layering on things month to month and building that platform as you go. If that's you, you're probably going to be a year or two in this before you've broken even on what it costs you to put your, to create your book. But the goal for most of those people is you're using the book as the tool and you're making the money from the speaking engagements, courses, and or selling your products, selling your services. So that's typically the model for most of the people that we work with that has that situation. if you have an existing audience, and I mean, some of our clients that have done really well and they've, the first month they're in the profit zone. You're looking at people who have, 100,000 Instagram followers that are quite engaged. They have a very strong interaction and engagement on Twitter. They already have a newsletter list of like 20,000 people. So those folks, they're selling a lot of books to that existing audience. So in essence, they've already done the work, they've invested, they've got it. So now they can make a return on that audience. So it really varies. And then we have one client right now who has done nothing. He doesn't have an audience and his book is just hitting those keywords. And I think he'd sold 800 copies before any of the marketing had happened. And that was just on keywords, but that's extremely rare. Like we've worked with 250 clients now, and that's the first time that's ever happened where, everybody's going like, how did so many books sell? And it was just a hot topic, a keyword topic. Yeah.
Well, you said we've done this, we've done that. Can you go ahead and tell the audience a little bit about your work with book launchers? What do y'all do?
Oh, yeah, sure. It's not me and my mouse in my pocket. Yeah. Yeah. So I have, after that first book came out, I started to see all these opportunities and challenges for self-published authors. So I ended up creating a self-publishing services firm called Book Launchers. And Book Launchers is all, like I said, it's full service. And what we do is we really take this marketing mindset, because at the end of this whole process of writing and publishing a book, a lot of people think the writing was the hard part, but the marketing is actually the hardest part. And so we pitch you to podcasts and media appearances and, help you get book reviews and live events and bookstore distribution and library distribution. And so we're going to be working at the end to help you sell your book. So we want to work really hard to help make sure you're creating a marketable book. So it's everything under one roof with that marketing focus. And so we start with a story expert to help you craft that hook. And then you can work with our writers or a writing coach, depending on if you want to write it yourself or get help. And then we have the whole editorial team and design team and publishing folks to help set it up for distribution. But you keep all rights and royalties, and you're fully independent at the end of this process. So one of the gifts that I got from Wiley rejecting me was owning the rights to my book, which one of my friends who got a deal with Wiley didn't have. And a production company that worked with HGTV wanted to do a pilot for HGTV from his book, and Wiley wouldn't negotiate. And he didn't have the rights himself. It had to go through Wiley, and Wiley wouldn't negotiate. So he had to buy back the rights to his book, which involved buying a copy of every book that was in print, which it was in widespread bookstore distribution. So that was expensive in order to shoot the pilot. And that's just the reality of it. You think it's because you wrote it, it's your book. But when you get a traditional deal, you've sold them that content. The book is the product, but you've sold them your IP. And so I owned my own IP, and that was very important when I started Book Launchers, that our authors own all their own IP and make all the money from it.
I'm really learning a lot today. I hope the audience is also. I don't want to give away all the juicy nuggets in your book, so I want to go ahead and close with just let you summarize any final thoughts, anything else you want the audience to know about self-publishing.
Yeah, I mean, besides picking up my book, which really I wrote it to give you that full picture and help you write a great book. I think the thing you need to know is that when you sit down to write your book, writing is probably the sixth step in the process. So you really got to get clear on who your reader is, and everything goes back to your reader, right? If you take away one thing today, it's like everything has to go back to your reader. But get clear on that hook, get clear on your reader, get clear on that outcome you want for them, and then think about what you want to achieve. But don't let those monsters get too strong. Go back to the outcome for your reader and why they need your book.
Good stuff. And let me go ahead and grab the copy one more time. The book is Self-Publish and Succeed, The No Boring Books Way to Write a Nonfiction Book That Sells by Julie Broad. And I'll go ahead and link to it in the show notes when I publish the podcast. And Julie, I want to thank you for coming on and sharing your wealth of knowledge. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
You bet.